Hello, welcome to this video. You've seen the title, but I'll say it anyway. I'm going to be going through my wish list of books that I'm hoping to get from the New Delhi World Book Fair 2026. And I am so ready. The New Delhi World Book Fair happens every year, and this year it starts tomorrow, the 10th of January. So the book fair is from the 10th to the 18th. And I was really hoping to get my hands on a physical ticket this year because you can get your tickets online or you can get one in person at certain metro stations. But this year, they have made entry to the World Book Fair free. So it is now more accessible to people and anyone can just walk on in. So that's great. I did want to put a physical ticket in my journal and talk about how I went to the book fair, but hey, if more people are reading, I am all for it. So I have been going pretty regularly for the past 3 to 4 years. I've gone with friends, I've gone with my own mom, I've gone with, I've gone on dates. Um, and it's amazing. I love going to the book fair. I love, actually, I don't know why, but for some reason I love being surrounded by books, and it's just the best and most calming feeling. And I love looking at all of these books and reading the blurbs and looking at the spines and looking at the covers and seeing different editions of books I already own, and then um, getting a little grumpy because there's a prettier edition on the in the book fair than the one that I own or something like that. It's just great. However, this year I am going with a plan. So I don't have the printout with me right now, but I actually went through my saved collections and like wish lists that I'd made in my journals and all, and I've pulled out all the books that I wanted to buy. I have I've made an Excel sheet, okay? I've highlighted the books that I definitely want to get, and I've like marked some books that are optional. There are certain books that I want in certain editions, and then there are certain books that I put on the list and then later was like, maybe not just yet. I have more than enough. So in this video, I'll just be going through those books and talking about them to you. Here's the list, okay? So, the first book that I'm hoping to get at the New Delhi World Book Fair 2026 is Oathbound by Tracy Dion. So, Oathbound is the third book in this series called the Legend Born Cycle. I think that there are four books in that series. When I read Legend Born, like when I bought Legend Born, I think it was supposed to be either a standalone or a duology at this point. I don't even remember. I remember buying it and finding out that I remember reading it and then finding out that there are going to be more books in the series. I do think it was supposed to be a standalone when I bought it, and then turns out that it was going to be a duology. I read the book. I loved the book. Um, the font size was a little small, honestly, um, but I loved it all the same. The plot twist was insane. At first, I thought it was like a Cassandra Clare type of plot twist. Like if you read the book, I think you might understand what I was trying to go for, like the certain plot lines that have no need to exist. Thankfully, it was not a similar plot twist, but it was like insane and just I will keep talking about this book anyway. And then I found out that there's a second book. I pre-ordered that. I waited for over a year. Then I found out that it's apparently gonna have four books in the series. So Oathbound is going to be the third one, unless they have like added more books into the series, and I just don't know. I'm hoping to get my hands on the smaller paperback, the trade paperback of Oathbound, because last year Oathbound was out, I believe, but it was in the big paperback, and that just wouldn't match the series that I have. These are the two books. You obviously cannot make it out, probably, but they're right here. So I'm hoping to get a smaller paperback of Oathbound, and then I'm gonna binge all three and then cry and wait for another year for the next and final book to come out. But it was just such an amazing series that I'm really eager to know where the story is going and what is all the story. There's like 4 books. Itna kya hai bhai? The second book that I'm hoping to get is Shark Heart. So this is a story about a person who has some kind of disease that turns him into a shark. And it sounds a little weird and odd and maybe even a little bit comical, but from the reviews that I've seen, people are talking about how it is a story about transformation, a story about change, about becoming something and not having any control over it. And as somebody who's been struggling with an injury with a medical thing for like almost a year at this point, it just hits a nerve. And I want to read it. I'm not going to over explain. I want to read it. So I'm looking for Shark Heart. Okay. The third book that I want is Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldry. And this is the third book in a series, but it's not like you can read any of these books as standalones. The characters, some of them just make an appearance in other books. And honestly, I think it's just about the Ratkin from the first one, which was Legends and Lattes. So these are all cozy fantasy series which are set in like D&D worlds. um and I really enjoyed the first 2 books. I know a lot of people had this gripe that they are very low stakes, like even when everything is coming to a head and all of that is happening, to some people it felt quite anticlimactic, but to me, who was like really really overwhelmed all the time at that time, it was wonderful. I was so glad that those characters were never in any real danger. And you know on what, it doesn't have to be life and death to be an issue. It doesn't have to be life and death to still be trouble, to still be something that stresses you out and bothers you. And some part of me, I guess, just felt comforted in that moment because I was dealing with a lot of things, but none of them were like life and death, life and death. And yet the weight of everything was so much. So reading about some characters who had something messy happen to them but it like wasn't life or death was comforting. That hey, these stakes are pretty big too. In our day to day lives, these stakes are pretty big, okay? For Brigands and Bread Knives, I specifically want the larger paperback because both Legends and Lattes and the second book, hold on, um, Bookshops and Bone Dust, both of these are in the larger size, which gets published first. Uh, this orangey book here and this gray book here, they're both Legends and Lattes and Bookshops and Bone Dust. And I want the third paperback to match them. So in cases like these, I just prefer to go and purchase the books instead of getting them off of Amazon, because half the time the books off of Amazon don't have a return policy, and I end up taking the risk. And in 2025, I've mostly lost these gambles, and so I'm just not taking the risk anymore. I'll buy a limited number of books, but I'll purchase what I exactly need. Okay. Um, so yeah, the next book that I hope to purchase from the World Book Fair is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I do not know if this book has come out in the smaller trade paperback size yet, but I'm hoping it has because that is the specific size that I want to purchase. My V.E. Schwab books, um, Vicious and Vengeful, and then on this shelf behind all the blue books, I've got the Darker Shades of Magic trilogy as well as the newest book, which is going to be an extension of the Shades of Magic universe. All of those are behind these books, and they are all the smaller paperbacks. I've also got Gallant, I've got the Near Witch, I've got the Archived, I've got the Unbound, I've got This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet. I've got basically everything she's ever written except for Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. And this is kind of my V.E. Schwab shelf. Like, I call it the Schwab shelf, but it's a secret Schwab shelf because all the books are behind these books. So I would like to get a copy of book, a copy of the book that matches the size of all of my other books. So that's what I'm looking to get. The next book is a completely optional one. It's called The Story Collector, and I have one of the books by this author called The Lost Library, The Secret Library, The Hidden Library. Oh, it's a bookshop. I've got The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. So I've got the Lost Bookshop, and I think that they're all cozy fantasies, and I think that they're all independent. But I had the Lost Bookshop, and then I found out about the Story Collector, and I added it onto to this list, and then I found out that there's a third book by this author, The Bakery on some street in Paris or something. I'm so sorry, I don't remember the full name of the book. I'll just find the book and put it here. But the moment I realized that there's multiple books now, I wasn't sure if I wanted to invest in all of them without first reading one book by this author. So it is pretty optional as of this moment. I put it on there, but I'm not quite sure if I want it. I might like get it or look for it if I can't find many of my other books, but it's on there, it's on the list. Okay, this next book is one that I desperately want, but I'm very worried that I'm either not gonna find it or that it's gonna break the bank, which is Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. So I love the Gideon the Ninth series, the Locked Tomb series, and the easiest way to describe the series is to say lesbian necromancers in space. But it's so much more. These books have yearning, man, and they also have found family, and they have friendship, and they're like funny as heck, and they've got like legit some of the coolest and the most like blorboest characters in the world, and I am so obsessed with them. I am also like really grateful that I read these on audiobook first, because some of the pronunciations in that book would have thrown me off, and I don't think I would have been able to get past that. These are like a sci-fi fantasy series, so there's sci-fi elements and there's fantasy elements. Like I said, lesbian necromancers, the necromancers being the fantasy element, in space being the sci-fi element. But it is really cool, and it's all pseudosciency and fantasy, and they have theorems to do their magic, and it's really cool. And I am waiting, waiting. Tamsin Muir, when you publish the last book, I'll be waiting. Sorry, having an epic the musical moment. But I'm waiting for the final book. And while I do that, I would like to get my hands on a copy of the third book in the series. The first two books that I got were hardcovers, and they were from like a small indie online bookstore that has since shut down. And I've really kneecapped myself because the only edition of like the hardcover that is available in India is imported, and it is more than 2K, and I simply cannot pay that price. So I would like to find it on offline. I would like to find it in the book fair. So, but if it is gonna be in the book fair, if it's 2K online, it's probably gonna be like 3K or something. So yeah, I have these two very valid and very real fears that I'm either not gonna find it at all, or if I do find it, it's not gonna be something I can afford. So panic. This next book, if you watch my content, you know, I've talked about this. I mean, and this is Among the Burning Flowers. So there's this series, The Priory of the Orange Tree, which was a huge book, and then A Day of Fallen Night, which was a huger, it was a bigger book. And I said, like I mentioned in my 26 books for 2026 video, I really wanted to start reading the series, and then I found out that there's another book in the series that has been published which is set between both of these books, and so now I'm gonna get a copy of it. Now I do have this conundrum of whether, because I have the Priory of the Orange Tree, the smaller paperback, and I've got A Day of Fallen Night and the larger paperback. Earlier I did not know that first they published the big chonky paperbacks, and then they published the trade paperbacks. I actually did a course about the publishing industry recently, and that's how I found out. um, but apparently when a book is published, they publish it in this bigger size first, and then they do the smaller size, the smaller print run later, which would have saved me a lot of grief, because I have a lot of series like the Poppy War, here, whose final book is a gigantic one. And the same thing happened with the Dark Artificer series by Cassandra Clare, that I've got one large book and two small ones, I think. I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, so I am confused as to which edition I'm gonna get. And the answer is simple, whichever one is available. And if they're both available, then whichever is cheaper. Because no matter what I do, the series is going to be divided. And there's literally nothing that I can do, honestly, here. Okay, now this is another book that I mentioned in my 26 books for 2026 video, and it is Happy Place by Emily Henry. By the way, today is 9th of January. I think in the US y'all get the People We Meet on Vacation movie today, but I think I'm gonna get it tomorrow. So, People We Meet on Vacation was the first Emily Henry novel that I read. It is right there. I love pointing to my books. Okay, I know you guys can't probably see the finer details, so you can't even make out which book I'm pointing to. But you're not here. If we were here in person, I would have taken it out and shown it to you. But we are here. So, People We Meet on Vacation was the first Emily Henry book that I read, and I liked her work. And ever since then, I've been exploring her other books, and I like them. I've loved them all so far. So I'm really, really excited for this movie, and we're getting that movie tomorrow. And this year, I hope to read Happy Place by Emily Henry, because it's about this couple who breaks up and then they're on like a vacation or a retreat. I don't know if it was just friends or if it was friends and family, or if it was just family. I don't remember. Okay, but to avoid making things awkward, they don't tell their friends and family that they've broken up. So they have to pretend to be a couple throughout the whole vacation retreat, and that's just hilarious. That's so stupidly dumb. That's gonna be so awkward. Um, and because it's a romance novel, it's gonna be so funny. They'll be like, "I hate this guy. I broke up with this guy," and I'm like, "You guys are gonna get back together." So it was a nice, hilarious little concept that I loved reading about, and I would love to see the execution of the concept now. Another book that I would like to get is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which is another cozy fantasy. It's got witches, it's got the secret society of witches, it's got other stuff. I think I remember someone talking about it, but for my own reading experience, I'm just going to try and purge all of that from my memory, because all I remember is that I think I'm really going to enjoy this book, and the less I know about it before I read it, the better. The cuter, the more fun, the more I get to explore. So, you can look it up, okay? I'm not going to tell you about this book because I don't want to get to know about it any more than I already do, okay? And another book in the category of books that I don't want to know too much about before I jump into them is Remarkably Beautiful Creatures. And as far as I remember, an octopus is going to solve a mystery. I didn't even bother to read the blurb the whole way through to try to figure out if the octopus is gonna be if the octopus is solving a human mystery or if he's solving an animal mystery. I don't know why I'm British now, but that sounds really entertaining and I really want to read it. More stories about non-humanoid characters, please. Okay, so when I was younger, I mean, I still do, but when I was younger, I really wanted to be an author, and I used to write a lot, and like I still have all of those works that I've written, and I've got like diaries, big fat ass diaries full of like my stories that I've written as a child, and in one of those stories, I did have a character called Garvit. Garvit was a fucking peacock. And his name was Garvit because it's like Garv is like pride. So he was a really proud peacock, you know. He was a bit of an asshole. And his name was Garvit. Also, I'm pretty sure there was some annoying classmate named Garvit. And I was like, what is all this peacocking? And then I was like, hold on, I have a peacock character. I can just name him Garvit. Nothing bad happens to Garvit. He's just an annoying character. But yeah, um, We have Garvit the Peacock. We have this crime solving, mystery unraveling octopus. And also, I'm pretty sure there's that movie coming out with Hugh Jackman with those sheep who are going to solve Hugh Jackman's murder. More such characters, more. If you know any such books, please let me know. I would love to read such books, honestly. Maza aa jayega yaar. Okay, now I'm gonna run through a bunch of really, really optional books before I talk about a bunch of books that I specifically want to purchase. Like, these are the books that I know where they're gonna be. I can visualize exactly where they will be, and I wanna get them. Okay, so before I get to those books, let me just talk about some optional books for a sec. Firstly, we have A Beautiful Evil. Okay, this is not that optional, but A Beautiful Evil by B. Fitzgerald. I read two books by her last year. I read Girl Goddess Queen, which is a Hades and Persephone reimagining, as well as The End Crowns All, which is a reimagining of the Trojan War. People told me they were retellings, but they're reimaginings, which makes them so much cooler because some of the terrible fates are not met. There is hope in these books, and there are unique twists on the story, and I loved that. I enjoyed both of these books so much. I was on a bit of a Greek mythology kick last year, which is going to continue this year. Okay, hold on. But I was on a bit of a Greek mythology kick last year. I listened to Epic the musical, which I was singing from just a few minutes ago. I read both of these books, like Girl Goddess Queen and The End Crowns All. I also read Electra by Jennifer Saint. I almost read Pandora, but honestly, that was not a Greek mythology story as much as it had Greek mythology artifacts. But it was a, um, how you say, it was a historical fiction, and at that point, I was not in the headspace for historical fiction. And I also read a bunch of Percy Jackson books last year. I think I read um, two Percy Jackson books in the middle of last year, and then I did start The Lightning Thief towards the end of last year. And now that I'm older and I'm actually reading proper Greek mythology, it is really, really cool to find out all the common aspects between Percy Jackson and the Greek myths. Like, obviously, Rick Riordan was a professor. He used to teach all of this, and he knows the stories, and that is why he put elements of those stories into Percy Jackson, and it makes so much sense. But when I started reading Percy Jackson was the thing that got me into reading, right? So when I started reading those books, I did not have that insight, and I was not critiquing those books, and I was not reading them critically. I was reading them because this was a guy my age, another 12-year-old who vaporizes his maths teacher. Do you know how many maths teachers I had that I wanted to vaporize? One. But I really wanted to vaporize her, okay? I did also have maths teachers that I was like really fond of. I still hated maths, but they were wonderful teachers, okay? But all of this aside, this was a guy my age who was fighting monsters and vaporizing maths teachers, and he had like a really cool sword, and I love swords. At this moment, I think there are 2 to 3 swords in my house. One of them is a katana, and two of them are swords. Um, I also have a plastic sword, which is a light up toy, which doesn't really work, but I have it all the same. I have sword keychains, sword pendants, sword earrings. I am saying sword too much. If you're of drinking age, you can play a drinking game and take a shot every time I say sword. I've said sword so many times that the word sword is no longer making sense to me. Coming back to the books that I want to get, I would love to get A Beautiful Evil, which is the third retelling by this author, and I'm really excited to read it. But it's kind of optional because I'm not sure if I'll find it, and it's also kind of optional because again I have two different editions of her books, and I'm not sure which edition I want to get. So until I find an edition that I really, really want, I don't think I'm gonna get it. Next, and this is going to be so controversial because why is this an optional book? But the next optional book is going to be Catabasis Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. Um, so I own like four books by R.F. Kuang. The only book I've read by her is one that I don't own, which is Yellow Face. And the rest of the books by her that I own are all pretty, like, not similar. They have similar themes, I would say. But I haven't read any of them. I have Babel. I have the Poppy War trilogy. I have not read any of them. Um, I did try to start the Poppy War trilogy recently, but I was not in that headspace, so I did not continue it. Don't come after me. I'm gonna read it, and I was enjoying it, okay, but it was a lot of world building, and I had a lot going on in my own life, so I had to do a lot of life building and putting things in order, so I couldn't like focus on the book, so I did not finish it at the moment. So, do I think I would love to get Cata do I think that I would love to get Catabasis and read it and I think I'll enjoy it? Yes. Is it compulsory for me to get it right now? Absolutely not. I can read all of these books by her and then get to it. It's not running away. It won't stop existing. It's not gonna vanish from the world. Next optional book is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I've read A Room of One's Own by her. I would like to read more, but it's a classic, and I found that recently I've not been reading any classics. I know that part of the reason for this is because I was trying to read as many books as I can because I was feeling guilty, and I was like kind of feeling judged, but even no one was judging me, I was judging myself for owning books that I had not yet read. And I knew if I picked up a classic like Pride and Prejudice took me 36 days. um, the Picture of Dorian Gray took me 40 days. So I know that I'll be reading slower. I might get into a reading slump and it'll take a lot of work, honestly. And I was not in a headspace to do that work, but that's a different point. But I was not picking up classics. I don't think I read a single classic last year. So I think I should get to the classics that I already own before I purchase another one. However, I found this company, this brand, this publisher called Kappa Classics today, and they have really gorgeous classics. I wish I could have gotten like one of Jane Austen's books from them, but I do have, I think, all of Jane Austen's published works. It's not like visible, but Mansfield Park is somewhere here. I think this one or this one. And Sanditon right here. I've got Emma. I've got I've got three copies of Pride and Prejudice actually because I really enjoy that novel. One of them is here, this pink one. One of them is over there. One of these tall ones. Hold on. There. And another one somewhere, the paperback that I read. Okay. So I was going through their catalog and I saw Mrs. Dalloway. So I think I'm gonna go and try to get that particular edition and hopefully read it as well. Okay, but we're not pressurizing ourselves to read too much this year. I filmed a video about it. I was gonna publish it initially, but I think I'm gonna publish this video first. So I will talk more about like the whole um the not commodification, like the competitivification. I'm going to talk about reading becoming a competition and go look up a dictionary to try to figure out what I was going to say. Okay. Yup. So the next optional book is Myrtle. I have a copy of Myrtle. My friend has it because we were solving it together, and I told my friend to keep it because I've already got so many books. And my friend has a bookshelf and they have space on their bookshelf. So I was like, you keep this copy. But then I've been traveling a bunch and I don't always want to read a whole book while traveling, but it would be nice to carry Myrtle with me. If you don't know Myrtle, it's a book with I guess like 100-ish puzzles where you try to figure out, like, there's a murder, there's a scene, and then you draw a little chart and you try to figure out who did it. It's like playing a Cluedo but in book form with a pen and paper, and it's really cool. So I want to do that. So I want my own second copy of Myrtle. So I'm gonna go look for Myrtle. Now, Myrtle here is optional because I couldn't figure out the publisher who's importing the book. The actual publisher that was listed, I think, was a foreign publisher. And in most of the books on Amazon, you can go and check, and there's an importer's name over there, or it's like a publisher that has an imprint in India. For example, there was a certain book, I don't remember which one, but it was the publisher was Penguin Island. So obviously in India, it's gonna be imported and sold by Penguin only. But with Myrtle, I wasn't able to figure out who the publisher was. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. And also, it's like way cheaper on Amazon. The next book that I want to get is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Laurie Gottlieb. A friend of mine recommended it to me like a year and a half ago, and I was going through my like saved collection of books that I would really like to read, and for some reason this one stood out to me. It's a little bit different from all the books that I have, and like I said, I've been trying to expand my reading horizons recently, and yeah, it's a good book. So if I find it, I'll try to get it, but it's not like one of those books that I absolutely have to get. So yeah, maybe you should talk to someone. And then the final like optional book on this list is The Odyssey by Stephen Fry. So I listened to Epic the musical last year, and I read Electra, and Electra was like a sort of, it had bits of the Iliad, and I read The End Crowns All, which is actually a reimagining of the Iliad, basically like the Trojan War and stuff. So the Odyssey and the Iliad are on my radar. I want to get my hands on the Emily Wilson translations, but they're also like pretty expensive. Like the paperbacks themselves are 16, 17, 1800 rupees, and that's pretty pricey, okay? I want to read those. But then Mr. Christopher Nolan has decided to create and release an adaptation of the Odyssey this year. I will be watching it. Am I a Christopher Nolan girly? Why should I tell you? You will hound me if I say no. But am I an Epic the musical girly? Absolutely. So, also Tom Holland is playing Odysseus's kid. That's interesting, I guess. And isn't Anne Hathaway Penelope? Penelope and Telemachus. I fight for us. I fight for us. Okay, before I start performing the whole musical. Okay, so my point being that I enjoyed the musical. I kind of more or less know the story. I'm also currently watching season 2 of Percy Jackson as and when it is airing. And the second book in the Percy Jackson series is also loosely based on the Odyssey, which is cool. So I would like to read the Odyssey. Now I'm gonna read the Emily Wilson translation. I'm gonna get it. It's gonna get cheaper, even if it gets like 100 rupees cheaper. I'm gonna get it off of Amazon because I don't know if I'll be able to find it in the book fair, which is good point. I should add that addition to my list, and I should keep an eye out for it. I'll just check the Indian importing publisher, and so I'm gonna get my hands on that. But then I also want to see some other adaptations, right? Some other versions of it before I jump into the adaptation. What's this on my arm? So I'm gonna do that. So I think I'm gonna be on the lookout for the Penguin edition of the Odyssey as well. But I put the Stephen Fry edition on here because that's one edition that I'm not like particularly gonna go look for. So I put it on the list just in case, like to keep an eye out for it. Um, Another drinking game, you can take a shot whenever I say the Odyssey or Odysseus or whatever. And now, and now. I'm going to talk about the books that I definitely want to get. Because, because. So, 16 years ago, when I was a 12-year-old child, I stumbled across Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. I was but a child. I was barely a reader. I used to actually read a lot of Enid Blyton books and the short story ones with the magical creatures, not the Fantastic Five or any of those. So I did not know that you're supposed to read series in order. I would just pick up any one of those books that I hadn't yet read and read it, right? So I was but a child and I did not know that you are supposed to read books in order of like in the series order. And I got the third Percy Jackson book, Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse, and I read it and I loved it. And because I was just a child, I used to be like my sibling and I read it together, and we used to like purchase one book a year. And the next one that we got was Lightning Thief, and then we got, I think, The Last Olympian, which was the fifth book, then the fourth one, and then the second one was the last one that I got. Okay, so these books are pretty old. I also, as I mentioned, did not have a bookshelf. So at one point, these were locked in a cupboard, and that cupboard was unfortunately placed in a location where rain had access to the cupboard, and the cupboard was not waterproof, and all my books got wet. And then in the hot Rajasthan sun, they got baked, and then rain, and then baking, and then so on and so forth. And recently, I tried to read those books, and they're full of mold. I've had to toss them out. I kept on trying to hold on to those books for so long, but now I have to toss them out, and I did. But um, there's this new like reprint of Percy Jackson, and they've got these colorful like. Do you see this bright blue book here, or this bright pink one here? I think that's Bunny. Next to Bunny, this one. And then this orange one here, and the yellow one, which is the Titan's Curse, which is the one that I'm currently reading, so it's not in the bookshelf. So I got the first five books in this series. Now I want to get the Heroes of Olympus books in the same series. I've ordered them off of Amazon. They've changed the picture of the cover on the listing, but they're still sending me the old editions. I own the old editions. They are right there in the shelf below this one that you cannot see. Okay. So I want to get those in these same editions. And I ordered all of the Heroes of Olympus books, and only one of them came in the correct edition, and I had to return all of the rest. And yeah, I ordered these with a return policy. But like I said, that I've been having some trouble with getting the right edition of books recently. So these are books, I know where they're going to be. I can visualize it. They're going to be in the Penguin stall, and then you enter, and then on this side you've got the children's middle grade fantasy section. And so you go through like this and like this and like this, and that's where they are. That's where they're going to be, and that's where I am going to be. Because I will be getting these books. So these are the first four books of Heroes of Olympus. Okay, so we've got The Lost Hero, The Son of Neptune, The Mark of Athena, and House of Hades. I need to get all of these books in this correct edition, as well as Percy Jackson and the Demigod Files. The Demigod Files does not have this special edition yet. So if I find it in that edition, that's well and good. But if I don't, I might just order it online, or I might just not, because it's not one of the main books, so I don't have to own it. I own every Rick Riordan book, I think, especially in the Percy Jackson, um, Magnus Chase, and the Egyptian series, Sadie and Carter universe, except for Demigods and Magicians. But even the companion books, like I had the Demigod Files, which was Percy Jackson, and then there was one on the Heroes of Olympus. It was a red hardcover. It's also somewhere down there. At one point, I had 35 books by him, and then I've bought like four or five more, the newer ones that have been published. Oh, I also have all of the Trials of Apollo books. So, yeah, I've got most of the Percy Jackson universe, and now that some of these books I'm having to let go of, I'm gonna get the replacement editions because that's where it all started. And that finally is all the books that I'm hoping to get this weekend at the New Delhi World Book Fair. Are you gonna be visiting? Are there any books you're gonna get? Are there any books you want to get? Ooh. If you can give me a recommendation, like other than the animals as main characters thing, I'm doing this Bev- Bewitched book challenge, shelf therapy book challenge. I'm doing a book reading challenge by this one person on Instagram, and I am Out of the 12 prompts, I have books for 11 prompts, okay? But there's this one prompt which is a translated book, and I don't think I own any translated books, or if I do, I can't remember any of them. So I want recommendations for translated books. So if there's something that you think that I should check out that I might enjoy, I've told you all about the kind of books that I am reading, enjoy reading, look forward to reading. Please recommend a translated book to me that I can get at the book fair, and that's gonna be cool. Okay, so I'm gonna see you all with my 2026 reading thingy, and then I'm gonna see you with a book haul and maybe a vlog, or maybe both, or maybe none, because I don't always like to film when I'm in public and when I'm with friends, you know. But yeah, I'm gonna see you, and you're gonna see me. So, okay, bye. Am I Kristen? Blah, 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 blah.